In the deep silence of the Orion sector, the stars shimmered like cold diamonds. Between those distant suns drifted a small wounded planet, Varus, home of a proud but dying species known as the Varians. Once, Varus had been a paradise, oceans glowing with silver algae, cities that floated in the skies, and music that resonated through the air like the heartbeat of the planet itself. But those days were gone. Now only smoke rose from the ruins, and the songs had turned into cries for help. The Varians had fought for centuries against the Dracons, a ruthless empire of war machines that conquered worlds like storms devour coastlines. The Varians were intelligent but peaceful. They built, they sang, they dreamed. They didn't know how to fight monsters forged from iron and hate. Their last hope lay in a desperate experiment, an ancient beacon called the Luminal Key. Legend said it could send a call, beyond known space, across galaxies, even dimensions. It wasn't a weapon. It was a plea. When the Varian scientists gathered in the underground bunker, their faces glowed under the faint blue light of the machine. Ilarin, their last surviving high scholar, stood before the console. His long silver tendrils trembled. "If this fails," he said softly, "our world will fall before the next sunrise." "And if it succeeds?" asked Tyrael, the youngest among them, her eyes full of a fragile kind of hope. "Then someone will hear us," Ilarin whispered. "Someone, or something." The machine hummed, then screamed, a piercing vibration that echoed across the room. They didn't know it then, but the signal leapt farther than any Varian could imagine, through the dust of dead stars, through wormholes and gravity fields, until it reached the Milky Way. It touched a small blue planet orbiting a yellow sun, Earth. At that very hour, inside Lunar Relay Station Epsilon, human technicians were finishing a routine systems check when a strange signal hit their receivers. The screen flared with impossible data, unknown frequency bands interlaced with what looked like crying. Technician Maya Carter frowned at her console. "Hey, Luis. You seeing this?" Luis spun his chair. "Is that from deep space?" "Not deep space," she said, voice trembling. "That's outside our known comm range. It's not human." She adjusted the filters. The sound became clearer, a haunting rhythm almost like a heartbeat, then a voice soft and broken. "Help us, please." "They are coming," Maya froze, every instinct in her screamed that this wasn't a drill. Within an hour, the message reached the United Earth Command. Military analysts, linguists, and AI systems all confirmed the same shocking truth. The voice was alien. The distress signal genuine. For the first time in history, humanity was being asked for help. General Marcus Hale, commander of the Earth Defense Fleet, stood before the holographic projection of the galaxy. His gray eyes were fixed on a small blinking point, the coordinates of Varus. "It's not a trap?" he asked. "No, sir," replied Dr. Keiko Tan, the chief linguist. "We've run simulations. The signal's authentic. The emotion in the voice? It's real." "They're dying, sir." Hale crossed his arms. "How far?" "2 jumps through the quantum gate network," Keiko replied. "With the new engines, the fleet could make it in less than 48 hours. He stared at the glowing point again. Humanity had changed over the past century. After uniting under one flag, they had expanded, mining moons, terraforming Mars, building fleets not for conquest, but for defense. Yet deep down, humans had always been protectors of the helpless, and fighters against bullies. Hale turned to his officers. "They called for help," he said quietly. "We'll answer." And with those words, the order spread across the stars. Prepare the Armada. Meanwhile, on Varus, hope was fading. The Dracon fleet had entered orbit. The sky was filled with fire. Metallic creatures descended like falling stars, tearing through the last Varian defense domes. The oceans boiled. The ground shook. Ilarin stood on the roof of the crumbling citadel, watching the horizon burn. Tyrael ran up beside him, her breathing ragged. "Master, the defense lines are gone." "I know. Then it failed, didn't it? The call." Ilarin turned his eyes to the stars. For a long moment, he didn't answer. The night sky was full of chaos, explosions and streaks of falling ships. "Maybe," he said softly. "Or maybe they just haven't arrived yet." Then far above them, the sky flickered. At first, it looked like lightning. Then the light grew, golden and fierce. spreading into a formation of brilliant shapes emerging from hyperspace. Dozens of them. No, hundreds. A fleet of metal giants, their hulls engraved with the blue and white insignia of Earth, the human armada. Every Varian who still lived stopped to look at the heavens. They had never seen ships like these, not cold and black like the Dracon war vessels, but shining with light, carrying symbols of peace and courage. Through the smoke, Tyrael whispered, "Who are they?" Ilaren's eyes widened, filled with tears. Not gods, not monsters, but humans. In orbit, General Hale stood aboard the UES Resolute, the flagship of the Armada. The stars reflected on the metal of his uniform as he watched the planet below. "Begin Operation Guardian Dawn," he ordered. In a storm of engines and fire, the human ships moved. Fighters swarmed down like eagles, intercepting the Dracon fleet. Laser arrays fired beams of blue light that sliced through enemy hulls. The Varians, watching from the ruins, couldn't believe their eyes. For the first time in centuries, the Dracons were losing. In the communication chamber, Tyrael received a transmission. Strange symbols first, then words translated into their tongue by a universal AI filter. "This is Commander Hale of the Human Defense Fleet," the voice said. "We received your signal. You're not alone anymore." Tyrael dropped to her knees, trembling. Ilaren closed his eyes as tears ran down his aged face. "They answered," he whispered. The stars answered, but the battle wasn't over. The Dracon dreadnought, a ship the size of a city, turned its cannons toward the human fleet. The sky turned red with plasma fire. One of the human cruisers, the Valor, was struck. Its engines failed, spiraling down toward Varys' surface. Maya Carter, the same technician who had first received the signal, was now on board, working as a communications officer. Alarms screamed. Smoke filled the deck. "We're going down," shouted the captain. Maya grabbed her headset. "Send out a distress ping that we can't lose this ship. There are civilians down there." The Valor crashed in the wastelands outside the Varian capital, carving a fiery scar across the desert. Yet miraculously, some survived. When Tyrael and a group of Varians arrived at the wreckage, they found the humans pulling each other out, helping, bleeding, but alive. One human soldier saw them, small, fragile, with eyes wide as they stared at these strange beings. Instead of raising his weapon, he smiled. "You called," he said weakly, "so we came." Tyrael didn't understand the words, but she understood the feeling. She reached out and placed her glowing hand over his, a bridge between two worlds that had never meant to meet. Above them, the human fleet and Dracon armada clashed in a war of light and shadow. But below, in the dust of a dying planet, something even greater had begun. The first bond between two species, born not of fear but of compassion. That night, under a broken sky, Ilaren stood before the wreck of the Valor. He watched as humans and Varians worked side by side, sharing food, building shelters, patching wounds. The old scholar smiled faintly. "Perhaps," he murmured to the stars, "it was not a mistake after all." Far above, the human armada formed a shining shield around the planet Varys. And as dawn broke over the ruins for the first time in ages, light touched the world with warmth instead of fire. The message that was never meant for them had reached the one species in the galaxy known for one thing above all. They never ignored a cry for help. The dawn over Varys was unlike any other. For the first time in centuries, it wasn't red from fire or smokes, it was gold. The sunlight broke through the clouds, touching the ruins softly, as if the planet itself was beginning to breathe again. The human armada still floated above, silent but strong, guarding the wounded world like a shield made of light. On the surface, humans and Varians worked side by side, two species who had never met, yet somehow understood each other in ways no translation could explain. Maya Carter stood outside the wreck of the UES Valor, watching a group of Varian engineers study a damaged thruster. Their long, elegant fingers moved carefully over the metal, their eyes full of curiosity. One of them, Tyrael, turned to her and smiled. "You fly the stars," Tyrael said slowly, her translator softly echoing her words. We used to sing to them." Maya smiled back, her voice gentle. "Maybe you can teach us your songs. We could use some music after all this noise." Tyrael tilted her head, as if she didn't fully understand, but her smile grew wider. Around them, both humans and Varians were building temporary shelters. Soldiers shared food rations with the local survivors. Medics from both sides worked together to heal the wounded. There was fear, confusion, and loss, but beneath it all, there was hope. And hope, Alarin believed, was the most powerful force in the universe. High above the surface, aboard the UES Resolute, General Marcus Hale stood before a large window, watching the planet rotate slowly below. Reports flickered across the screen. Dracon ships destroyed. Varian population reduced to less than 2 million, and increasing radiation zones across the northern hemisphere. It was a victory, but a fragile one. The Dracons weren't gone, only pushed back. A voice came from behind him. "General, long-range sensors detect movement at the edge of the system." Hale turned sharply. "More Dracons?" "Unclear, sir. The signatures are different, larger." The general's jaw tightened. The enemy was regrouping. "Alert all fleets," he ordered. "No one leaves orbit. We protect Varys, no matter the cost." Back on the surface, Maya sat beside Alarin near a makeshift fire. The air was cool and quiet, the sky filled with stars. "When we sent the signal," Alarin said softly, "we did not know who would hear us. We thought perhaps another race like ours, gentle, peaceful. But you came. You humans, you fight for others. Why?" Maya looked into the flames, thinking of Earth, of home, the blue oceans, the crowded cities, the children running under clear skies. "Because we know what it feels like," she said finally. "To be afraid, to be small, to lose everything and still stand up again. It's who we are." Alarin's eyes glistened with faint light. "Then perhaps it was fate that you heard our call." Before Maya could reply, a deep rumble echoed from the horizon. A bright flash lit up the night sky. Then another. Tyrael ran toward them, fear in her eyes. "Dracons," she cried. "They're coming again." The humans reacted instantly. Fighters took off from the wrecked Valor, engines roaring like thunder. Soldiers scrambled to the defensive lines they had set up earlier with the Varians. General Hale's voice echoed across every comm channel. "All units prepare for ground assault. Shield the civilian zones." From the darkness of the upper atmosphere, new Dracon ships appeared. Sleek, black, shaped like blades. They began to drop pods, metallic capsules that burst open as they hit the ground, releasing towering figures of steel. The Dracon ground troops had arrived. Maya grabbed her rifle and helmet. "Let's move!" Alarin and Tyrael ran toward the shelters to guide civilians inside, while the humans formed a perimeter. Plasma fire lit up the sky as the Dracons advanced, mechanical beasts with glowing red cores crushing everything in their path. But the humans were not alone this time. The Varians, though untrained for war, used their technology, energy shields and sonic disruptor, to aid the defense. Together they fought side by side. Tyrael watched from behind a barricade as Maya and her squad faced the Dracons head-on. The humans fought with courage and coordination, covering each other, shouting words she didn't understand but somehow felt, commands, encouragements, promises. Then, one of the Dracons aimed a heavy plasma cannon at the civilians hiding nearby. Tyrael saw it, and before she could think, she ran forward. Alarin shouted after her, "Tyrael, no." She leapt over the rubble, her small hands glowing with the faint blue energy of her people's resonance power. It wasn't a weapon, but when focused, it could disrupt energy fields. She placed her palms on the ground and screamed. A pulse of light erupted outward, striking the Dracon's cannon. It overloaded and exploded. The blast threw Tyrael to the ground. Maya ran to her, grabbing her hand. "You okay?" Tyrael nodded weakly, smiling despite the dust and burns. "We fight together," Maya grinned. "Yeah, together." The battle raged for hours. Human ships fired from orbit, striking enemy reinforcements. The Varian resistance used tunnels and hidden energy mines to trap the Dracon machines. Slowly, painfully, the tide turned again. By sunrise, the ground was littered with smoking metal. The Dracons were forced to retreat. When it was over, Maya stood among the wreckage, breathing heavily. Alarin approached her, carrying a wounded Varian child in his arms. "They would have taken us all," he said. "But your people, they stood like walls of fire." Maya looked up at the sky where the human ship still hovered. "We're not walls," she said quietly. "We're bridges, between you and the stars." In orbit, General Hale reviewed the aftermath. His officers gathered around the table, tired but proud. "We've bought them time," said Commander Reyes. "But the Dracons will come back. That dreadnought wasn't their last. I know, Hale replied. They'll regroup and they'll come harder. But now we have something they don't. Unity. Dr. Keiko Tan joined them holding a datapad. Sir, the Variants have offered us access to their luminal key, the same device that sent the signal. It's more than just a transmitter. It's connected to some kind of ancient power grid beneath their planet. Hale frowned. You think it can be used as a weapon? Not a weapon, Keiko said, shaking her head. But maybe a shield, a planetary one. The general nodded slowly. Then we'll help them repair it. He turned to the window again. We didn't come here to conquer. We came to protect. If the Dracons want another fight, they'll get one. But this time we won't be standing alone. Days passed. Varys began to change. The skies cleared. The people rebuilt small villages with human engineers' help. Children from both species played together, laughing, drawing symbols of stars and ships in the dust. Maya often worked with Tyrael, teaching her Earth language while learning some of the Varian symbols. The two became inseparable, partners in rebuilding what war had broken. One night, as they stood near the repaired beacon tower, Tyrael asked softly, "Do you think the Dracons will return?" Maya looked at the stars. Yes, they always do. But so will we. Tyrael's eyes glowed faintly. Then perhaps, your people and mine are not so different. You came when we called, even when we did not mean to. Maya smiled. Maybe it doesn't matter who the call was for. What matters is that we heard it. They both fell silent, looking at the horizon, where the first signs of dawn began to paint the sky. Far away, at the edge of the system, in the cold silence of deep space, a massive Dracon flagship floated in the shadows. Inside, the overlord of the Dracon Empire watched holograms of the recent battle. Humans, he hissed, his voice metallic. A species we never encountered. They protect the weak. His second-in-command bowed. Shall we destroy them, my lord? The overlord's eyes glowed red. Not yet. Let them believe they've won. Let them build their friendship and their hope. When we strike again, we will crush both their world, and the stars themselves will burn. He turned to the window where 100 new warships waited in darkness. Prepare the fleet, he commanded. The humans have answered one call. Now they will hear ours. Back on Varys, Ilaran stood on a cliff overlooking the valley, where lights from human camps glowed like stars upon the ground. Tyrael and Maya waved from below, surrounded by children from both worlds. For the first time, Ilaran felt something he hadn't in centuries. Peace, he whispered to himself. Perhaps this is how new worlds begin, not with conquest, but with compassion. The wind carried his words softly across the land, and in that quiet moment, under a sky shared by two species, the seeds of a new alliance were born. An alliance that would soon be tested in ways none of them could imagine. Because somewhere beyond the stars, darkness was already coming. The planet Varys glowed softly under the twin moons. From orbit, it looked peaceful. The scars of battle slowly healing under the light of human ships that floated like silver guardians above the atmosphere. On the surface, however, the real work had just begun. Human engineers worked alongside Varian scientists to rebuild the ancient beacon, the luminal key. Once a desperate signal for help, it was now being transformed into a planetary shield generator, powerful enough to protect Varys from another Dracon invasion. Inside a wide circular chamber deep below the planet's surface, Dr. Keiko Tan Ilaran and several Varian scholars studied glowing blue crystals embedded in the walls. They pulsed slowly as if alive. These crystals, Keiko said, aren't just energy sources. They're part of a living network, the planet's own nervous system. Ilaran nodded slowly. Our ancestors said Varys had a soul. We thought it was only poetry. Perhaps they were right. A young Varian technician turned from his console. If we connect the human reactor core here, he pointed at the diagram, the energy will flow through the planetary grid. Keiko's eyes lit up. Then the shield might actually work. But as the group celebrated the progress, none of them noticed the small, dark figure hiding in the shadows behind the crystal wall, a Varian with a strange device strapped around his wrist. His eyes flickered red for a second, reflecting the faint hologram of a Dracon insignia. He wasn't there to build. He was there to sabotage. Above the planet, aboard the UES Resolute, General Marcus Hale studied the sensor reports. The crew moved quietly around him, tired but determined. Every officer knew the calm wouldn't last. "How long until the shield is operational?" Hale asked. "Another 48 hours, sir," came the reply from Dr. Keiko over the comlink. "But we need to test the resonance flow." "It's unstable." Hale nodded grimly. "You'll have your time. We'll keep the skies clear." He turned toward the massive viewing window where the stars shimmered in cold silence. Somewhere out there he knew the Dracons were preparing for revenge. He had fought many wars, but this one felt different. For the first time, humanity wasn't fighting for territory or pride. They were fighting for a world that wasn't even theirs. On the surface, Maya Carter and Tyrael worked near the refugee camp, helping distribute supplies. The two had grown close, not just as allies, but as friends. Maya laughed as she handed a packet of food to a small Varian child who stared curiously at her hair. "What, never seen brown hair before?" she teased. The child giggled and ran back to his family. Tyrael smiled. "Your people are strange," she said softly. "You fight with such fire, but you smile so easily." "That's how we survive," Maya said. "If we stop smiling, we forget why we fight." Tyrael nodded slowly, looking up at the human ship streaking across the sky. "Do you think your world misses you?" Maya hesitated. "Every day," she admitted. "But if we can save yours, then maybe it's worth it." Their moment of calm was broken when a loud explosion echoed from the nearby ridge. Dust and light erupted into the air. Maya's communicator buzzed. "Command to all units. Energy surge detected at the luminal site. Possible breach." Maya's heart raced. "Tyrael, we have to move." Inside the luminal chamber, chaos erupted. Alarms screamed as systems overloaded. The glowing blue crystals flickered violently, then dimmed. Energy arcs danced across the control panels. Keiko shouted over the noise. "Shut it down." "The resonance is collapsing!" Ilaran ran to the main console, his trembling hands typing ancient Varian symbols into the system. But the energy was spiraling out of control. Then, through the smoke, the saboteur moved. He slammed a small device onto the reactor core, a pulsing black sphere, and pressed a button. The device hissed and began to glow. Ilaran saw him and froze. "Who are you?" The Varian turned, his eyes burning red. "You think humans came to save us," he growled. "But they only bring war. Varys must not depend on them." Before he could activate the device, Maya and Tyrael burst into the chamber with 2 human soldiers. "Drop it," Maya shouted, raising her weapon. The saboteur sneered. "You can't stop it now." He pressed the switch, but instead of exploding, the sphere pulsed once, then went dark. Tyrael had used her resonance power at the exact moment, sending a shockwave that disrupted the device. The saboteur stumbled back, shocked. Maya moved fast, knocking the weapon from his hand and tackling him to the floor. "You almost killed everyone," she shouted. He hissed in reply. "You don't belong here. Varys must stand alone." Ilaran approached slowly, sadness in his eyes. "And standing alone nearly destroyed us." The traitor looked away, defeated. Soldiers took him into custody and the crisis was contained. But the incident left deep cracks in the fragile trust between the two races. Later that night, General Hale held a meeting with Ilaran and Keiko. The holographic table displayed reports of the sabotage. "He was working for the Dracons," Hale said grimly. "They must have planted agents among the refugees." Ilaran lowered his head. "We failed to see it. Some of my people still fear your presence. They think Varys will become another colony." Hale sighed. "We didn't come here to take your home. But if we can't trust each other, we'll both lose it." Keiko looked between them. "The shield needs both our technologies. If either side hesitates, it won't work." The silence in the room was heavy. Finally, Ilaran raised his head. "Then let us prove that our trust is stronger than their hate." Over the next 2 days, humans and Varians worked harder than ever. The sabotage had damaged part of the reactor, but with combined effort, they repaired it. Tyrael helped Keiko calibrate the resonance frequencies, while Maya coordinated defense patrols. There were small moments of beauty amid the tension. Varian children bringing glowing flowers to human camps, engineers laughing over translation mistakes, and soldiers sharing stories about Earth's oceans and Varys's singing trees. Hope was rebuilding itself, one quiet act at a time. But in the void beyond the planet, the Dracon overlord watched everything through hidden probes. "They rebuild," he muttered. "Let them. The brighter their light, the deeper their fall." He turned to his generals. "Prepare the Shadow Fleet. We will strike the moment their shield activates." When they think they are safe, we will end them all. Back on Varus, the final test for the luminal shield began. The air around the ancient tower shimmered with energy as the human reactor linked with the Varian crystal core. Dr. Keiko spoke over the comm, her voice steady but filled with awe. Beginning activation sequence. 3, 2, 1. A wave of blue light surged outward, spreading across the sky like ripples in water. The entire planet seemed to glow for a moment. In orbit, the human ship's sensors lit up. Shield grid forming, sir, a technician called. It's working. General Hale smiled slightly. Finally. On the surface, Maya and Tyrael watched the glowing dome form across the sky. Tyrael whispered, "It's beautiful." "Yeah," Maya said softly. "It's the sound of hope." But even as they smiled, an alarm began to blare aboard the Resolute. "Multiple warp signatures," a crew member shouted. "Dracon fleet incoming, hundreds of ships." Hale's face hardened. "All units, battle stations. Shield team, hold that grid no matter what." The stars outside twisted as dark shapes emerged. Massive Dracon warships, their hulls covered in glowing red veins. Energy cannons charged, lighting the void with crimson light. The Dracons fired, beams of plasma streaking toward Varus. The luminal shield flared and held. From the surface, people watched as fire met light above the clouds. The sky burned, but the shield shimmered strong, turning each blast into harmless sparks. Cheers erupted across the planet. The shield was holding. But deep beneath the surface, where the reactor core hummed, something else began to stir. The damaged circuits from the earlier sabotage glowed faintly, red instead of blue. Keiko noticed the readings on her screen spike. "Wait, the energy is rising too fast." Alarin's voice shook. "The shield is overloading." Before anyone could respond, a violent tremor shook the chamber. Sparks rained from the ceiling. Keiko screamed into the comm. "General, we can't hold it. If the core collapses, the entire planet could—" Her voice cut off in static. Above the surface, Hale watched in horror as the shield flickered. Maya's voice came through, filled with panic. "The reactor's going critical. We need to shut it down." Tyrael grabbed her arm. "If we shut it down, the Dracons will destroy us." Maya's eyes burned with determination. "Then we don't shut it down. We fix it." Together they ran toward the reactor entrance even as the ground shook and lightning danced across the sky. The human armada fought fiercely in orbit, buying them time. Varian fighters joined the defense, weaving between enemy ships in graceful, desperate maneuvers. It was chaos but also unity. Two species, one purpose. Inside the reactor core, Maya and Tyrael reached the main console. Energy surged wildly through the room. Ilarin and Keiko struggled to stabilize the power grid. "It's the sabotage circuit," Keiko shouted. "We can't isolate it. It's fused into the crystal." Maya gritted her teeth. "Then we'll cut it manually." Tyrael's eyes widened. "That's suicide." Maya smiled faintly. "Not if I'm fast enough." She ran toward the energy conduit, sparks flying around her. The light was blinding. Tyrael shouted her name, but it was lost in the roar. Maya reached the conduit, opened the panel, and with trembling hands ripped the corrupted wires free. The light exploded around her in a storm of blue and white, and the dawn over Varus was quiet, almost peaceful. After the chaos of the last battle, the planet's skies had cleared, leaving only soft streaks of blue and gold across the horizon. The shield that had once been unstable now shimmered steadily, protecting Varus from distant threats. Yet peace was fragile. The loss of Maya Carter weighed heavily on everyone. Though she had survived the reactor's surge, her body had been gravely injured and she remained in a medical pod deep inside the human field hospital. Her sacrifice had saved the planet, but her life hung in balance. Tyrael sat beside her, holding the communicator piece she had kept from the reactor core. She whispered softly, "You became one of us, Maya. You're part of Varus now." Beside her, Ilarin's long tendrils trembled as he spoke. The courage she showed, it is more than a gift. It is a legacy, one that will guide us through the darkness ahead. Above the planet, the human armada maintained orbit, its ships forming a protective ring. General Marcus Hale observed the sensors carefully. The Dracons had retreated for now, but he knew they would return, stronger and more ruthless. "We've given them time to rebuild," Hale said quietly to Commander Reyes. "But we can't let them think this is the end. The Overlord is patient. He waits for the right moment, Reyes nodded. Sir, reconnaissance has detected movement at the far edge of the system. Unknown fleet signatures, larger than before. Hale's jaw tightened. Prepare all units, and make sure the Varians are ready. This time, we need to fight not just for survival, but for the future. On the ground, Varians and humans worked side by side, rebuilding towns and defenses. Even among the rubble, life seemed to return. Children laughed, small gardens were planted, and engineers shared stories of Earth's oceans and Varys's glowing forests. Tyrael walked through the camp, checking on the survivors. Her heart lifted slightly as she saw the bond forming between the two species. Humans who had arrived as strangers were now teachers, friends, and protectors. She stopped at a small group of children, human and Varian, playing a game that combined their languages and gestures. One child turned to her and asked, "Will they come back?" Tyrael knelt beside them. "Yes," she said honestly, "but we are stronger now. Together we will not be afraid." Deep underground, the luminal core hummed steadily. Dr. Keiko Tan oversaw the repairs and upgrades. With Maya's sacrifice in mind, she worked tirelessly, connecting the human reactor with the Varian crystal network. "We must strengthen the resonance," Keiko told Ilaran. "The Dracons will return, and next time they may bring weapons that even the shield cannot block alone." Ilaran nodded. "Then we combine both our strengths, our knowledge, our power, and our courage. Only together can we stand against what is coming." As the two species worked together, a subtle glow began to emanate from the core, brighter, steadier, and warmer than before. It was a light born of trust and unity, something the Dracons could never understand. But darkness never rested. At the edge of the galaxy, aboard his massive flagship, the Dracon overlord studied the reports from his scouts. "They survive," he hissed, watching the images of the shield holding firm. "They rebuild. They even fight together." A red glow in his eyes intensified. "Then we shall give them a final lesson. The light of Maya Carter was only temporary. The Shadow Fleet will end it permanently." His generals bowed as massive warships emerged from hidden warp points, black and jagged against the void. They carried weapons designed to pierce planetary shields and crush any defenders in orbit. "Prepare the warheads," the Overlord commanded. "When we strike, let no hope remain." On Varys, the calm of the surface masked the tension below. Ilaran and Tyrael monitored the luminal core as it pulsed steadily. Suddenly, a warning flashed on the main console. "Unknown fleet approaching," a Varian technician called. "Massive signatures. They're fast. Faster than anything we've seen," Tyrael gasped. "The Dracons." Ilaran's eyes widened. "They've returned. And they've brought reinforcements." Keiko activated the planetary shields fully, sending a wave of energy into the sky. The glow stretched across the horizon, forming a protective dome. "Hold the shield," Keiko shouted. "It's the only thing keeping them from destroying us before we can respond." Above Varys, the first battle began. The Dracon Shadow Fleet moved in formation, weapons charging. Human ships surged forward, cutting through the enemy with precision. On the ground, the shield's light created a surreal spectacle, beams of energy reflecting off mountains and valleys. While the sky filled with streaks of laser fire, Maya, still in her medical pod, watched through a small viewport. Her body was weak, but her spirit remained. She whispered, "Hold on. Protect them." Tyrael held her hand against the glass. "We will," she promised. "You gave us this chance. We won't waste it." The humans and Varians fought with incredible coordination. Fighters weaved between enemy ships while ground troops used the shield as cover to hold back advancing Dracon units. In the midst of the chaos, Tyrael realized something. The Dracons weren't just attacking. They were searching. "They want the luminal core," she shouted to Maya's medical team. "If they get it, they'll destroy the planet." Ilaran nodded grimly. "Then we must protect it no matter the cost." Human soldiers stationed around the core formed a protective perimeter. They fought bravely, using tactics that Tyrael had never seen before. Each movement was precise, coordinated, and unyielding. Even the children, guided to safety by volunteers, helped where they could, bringing supplies, carrying messages, and comforting the frightened. It was a battle of courage, not just weapons. As the Shadow Fleet advanced, General Hale made a critical decision. "All units form the crescent formation. Focus fire on the lead ships. We can't let them break through the shield. Human cruisers surged forward like a tidal wave, their lasers cutting into the enemy. Variant energy weapons complemented the attack, creating a combined assault the Dracons had never faced. But the Overlord was relentless. He unleashed massive warheads aimed at the planet. The shield flared, absorbing the impact, but each strike weakened it slightly. Tyrael watched in horror as one warhead nearly breached the dome. "We can't hold it much longer," she cried. Maya's voice, faint but steady through the comm system, cut in. "Focus. Trust the shield. Trust each other. Together!" Her words became a mantra. Soldiers, Varians, and civilians alike fought not out of fear, but out of trust. The same trust that had allowed humans to answer a call they had never meant to hear. Hours passed. The battle raged with relentless fury, but gradually the Shadow Fleet began to falter. Human tactics combined with Variant technology and the luminal core's growing energy created an unbreakable defense. Ilaran watched the core hum brighter than ever. "The light. It is stronger than the darkness," he whispered. Tyrael nodded, tears in her eyes, "because we are not alone." Even as Dracon ships fell from the sky in blazing arcs, the Overlord realized he could not win this battle. The unity of humans and Varians had created something stronger than his hatred, a force he could not anticipate. When the sun rose over Varys, the battlefield was quiet. The shield still glowed, protecting the planet. The Shadow Fleet had retreated, leaving wreckage scattered across the orbit. On the surface, humans and Varians emerged from their shelters, exhausted but alive. They hugged, laughed, and cried together. Maya's pod was opened carefully. Though weak, she smiled faintly at Tyrael. "You made it," she whispered. Tyrael held her hand, overwhelmed. "No, you made it. You saved us all." Ilaran approached, tears glinting in his eyes. "You've become part of Varys, Maya. Your courage will be remembered for generations." In orbit, General Hale watched the planet below. "They survived," he murmured. "And now they have a chance to grow, stronger than ever." He knew the Dracon Overlord would return, but he also knew something else, something far more powerful than weapons or machines. "Hope," he whispered, "and nothing can destroy hope." As the luminal core pulsed with steady light, humans and Varians alike gazed at the sky. They had survived the storm. They had built a bond stronger than fear, and far away in the shadows of space, the Overlord prepared for his next move. But he knew one truth that haunted him. No darkness can stand against the light of unity. On Varys, life slowly returned. Children laughed again. Villages were rebuilt, and humans and Varians shared stories, knowledge, and dreams. The memory of the battle remained, but so did the memory of courage, trust, and sacrifice. The galaxy had changed. Humanity had answered a call they were never meant to hear. And in doing so, they had lit a beacon of hope that would shine for generations to come. Then suddenly, everything went still. The energy stabilized. The shield glowed steadily again. Keiko gasped. It's working." "She did it," Ilaran whispered. "The human saved us again." Tyrael fell to her knees, tears shining in her eyes. "She didn't save us," she said softly. "She became one of us." In orbit, the Dracon fleet began to retreat. The shield held firm, the human ships pursued, and for now the planet was safe. General Hale watched the calm return to the stars. "We live another day," he said quietly. But his heart was heavy, because one of his own had been lost to make it possible. When the light returned to Varys' skies, the people gathered around the repaired beacon. Tyrael stood beside Ilaran and Dr. Keiko, holding a small piece of Maya's communicator, the only thing that remained. The twin moons of Varys rose high above the planet, casting soft silver light across the plains. The luminal shield shimmered faintly, its gentle glow covering the lands and cities that had survived the Dracon assaults. For a moment the world seemed at peace, but everyone knew this peace was temporary. The Dracon Overlord had returned, not with a scattered fleet but with his full armada, and this time, he carried a weapon designed to destroy both the shield and the planet itself. The Oblivion Cannon, a massive war engine capable of channeling destructive energy through space and time. From orbit, the human fleet detected the approach. General Marcus Hale stood on the bridge of the UES Resolute, his face grave. "All units report," he ordered. "Shadow Fleet approaching at full speed," a technician called. Energy readings off the charts. They're carrying something massive, sir. Hale's jaw tightened. Prepare for the fight of our lives. All ships engage defensive formation. Protect Varys at all costs. On the surface, the alarm bells rang across the cities. Civilians ran to shelters, guided by humans and Varians working together. Tyrael helped coordinate the evacuation, while Ilaran moved to the luminal core, ensuring it was ready for maximum output. Maya Carter, still recovering but determined, joined them. Her strength was limited, but her resolve burned brighter than ever. "We can't let them destroy Varys," she said softly. "The people down there. The children. We fight for them." Tyrael nodded, her long tendrils glinting in the shielded light. "And for everyone who believes in hope." The Alliance, human and Varian, prepared to face the final storm. The first wave of Dracon ships entered the system. Dark, massive, and deadly. They moved like a shadow across the stars. The human fleet fired first, lasers streaking through the void. Varian energy weapons joined in, creating a dazzling display of light and power. But the Oblivion cannon loomed behind them, its energy field building, a sphere of destructive potential unlike anything seen before. "It's too strong for our shields alone," shouted Commander Reyes. Hale clenched his fists. "Then we combine them. Channel the luminal core's resonance through the shield. Every ship, every energy source. We turn the planet itself into a weapon of light." On Varys, the ground trembled as the luminal core roared to life. Energy flowed through the planet's natural crystal network, spreading into the shield above. The dome of light expanded, glowing brighter than the twin moons combined. Ilaran and Keiko monitored the power flow. "It's incredible," Keiko whispered. "The planet itself is amplifying the resonance. It's alive." Tyrael looked up at the shielded sky. "Maya, do you think it will be enough?" Maya placed a hand on the glowing core console. "It has to be, because we are not just energy. We are courage, unity, and trust. That is stronger than anything the Dracons can throw at us." The first blast from the Oblivion cannon struck the shield. The planet shook violently. Buildings trembled, trees bent under the force, and rivers rippled as if the planet itself were gasping. "Shield holding at 80%, a technician shouted. But the next hit could break it. Hale's voice was calm but firm. "Focus fire on the cannon. Target the energy conduits. If we can destabilize it, the shield will survive." Human fighters surged toward the massive warship, weaving through enemy fire with precise coordination. Varian interceptors joined them, using their advanced maneuvering systems to block the Dracon attacks. On the ground, Tyrael and Maya worked with the shield emitters, manually adjusting resonance flows to strengthen the dome. Sparks and energy arcs danced around them, but neither wavered. The battle in space intensified. The Human-Varian alliance moved as one, a living wave of coordinated attacks. Lasers tore through enemy hulls, energy blasts disrupted enemy formations, and drones disabled critical systems on the Oblivion cannon. Inside the Dracon flagship, the Overlord screamed in fury. "How dare they survive? How dare they resist?" His generals bowed nervously. "They are stronger than expected, my lord." "Then destroy them all," he roared. "Leave nothing alive." But even as the Shadow Fleet attacked, a surprising phenomenon began. The luminal shield, amplified by the core, sent out pulses of light that disrupted enemy navigation. Dracon ships collided, turned away, or were consumed by bursts of energy. Even the Overlord's cannon began to destabilize. Back on the planet, Maya realized what needed to be done. "We can't just defend. We have to strike back together." Tyrael looked at her. "You mean channel the planet's energy?" Maya nodded. "We focus it on the cannon. With humans in orbit and Varians on the ground, we can overload it." Ilaran placed his hands on the crystal network. "It is dangerous. The energy could harm us. But if we succeed, the planet and its people will survive." Maya smiled faintly. "Then we do it." The combined efforts began. Human ships fired precise energy beams. Varian emitters amplified the resonance, and the luminal core pulsed like a heartbeat. The shield glowed brighter and brighter, forming a column of light that reached toward the Oblivion cannon. Inside the Dracon flagship, the Overlord realized too late. "Impossible. How can one planet resist all my power?" The cannon overloaded, sparks and energy arcs bursting across its massive hull. "Now!" Hale commanded. "All units, fire everything." A synchronized strike erupted. Lasers, plasma, and resonance energy collided on the cannon. The shockwave rolled across space and the dark warship disintegrated in a blinding explosion. The Shadow Fleet faltered. With their flagship destroyed, the remaining Dracon vessels retreated in panic. On Varys, the shield slowly settled back into a calm glow. The battle was over. The luminal core hummed steadily, stabilizing the planet and returning energy to normal levels. Maya collapsed from exhaustion, weak but alive. Tyrael and Alarin rushed to her side. "You did it," Tyrael whispered, tears streaming down her face. "You saved us." "All of us," Maya smiled faintly. "We all did it. Together." Around them, humans and Varians emerged from shelters, injured but alive, looking up at the shield and the dawn breaking across the planet. The sound of laughter and cheering rose like music across the plains. General Hale watched from the Resolute as Varys glowed under the renewed shield. "We answered a call we were never meant to hear," he said softly. "And in doing so, we found a new family among the stars." Commander Reyes nodded. "The galaxy will remember this day, sir. Varys survived because humans listened, and because the Varians trusted us." Hale allowed himself a small smile. "It is more than victory. It is hope." The Dracon overlord, watching from the shadows of deep space, retreated. His fury burned, but the reality was undeniable. He had been defeated not just by weapons, but by courage, trust, and unity. "They are dangerous," he muttered. "Perhaps too dangerous to destroy completely. But the next time, I will return." Back on Varys, life began to heal. Children played freely, humans and Varians worked together to rebuild villages, and the sky remained bright with the shield's protective glow. Tyrael walked with Maya through a small garden, now blooming again thanks to the combined efforts of both species. "You are truly one of us now," Tyrael said softly. Maya smiled. "And you are part of my family too." Alarin stood nearby, watching the scene. "This is how new worlds are born," he whispered. "Not through conquest, not through fear, but through trust, courage, and the willingness to answer a call that was never meant for you." The human armada remained above the planet for some time, ensuring the Dracons would not return immediately. But even as ships departed, leaving orbit empty, the connection between humans and Varians remained, unbroken and eternal. The galaxy had seen a force unlike any before, a light that could defy even the darkest shadows. And on Varys, as the sun rose higher, people of two worlds celebrated, alive, united, and ready to face whatever the future held, because a single call for help, no matter how small, had been answered. And that answer had changed everything. Alarin spoke softly to the crowd. "A human came to our world not to rule it, but to save it. Let her courage remind us all. Light can come from anywhere, even from beyond the stars." The crowd bowed their heads, and far above them, in the gentle glow of the shield she had saved, Varys began a new day, safe but forever changed.